Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 323. What does cybersecurity mean to you? This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by BusyBench, the all-in-one management tool simplifying IT for computer repair businesses with a clean and simple interface. Spend more time running your business instead of learning your management software. For a free 14-day trial, just go to busybench.com, use the offer code PODNUTS for the 30% off the life of your account. And also by Untangled Next Generation Firewall, the best solution for bringing powerful network security to your clients in an easy to manage and cost-effective package. Untangled's partnership program helps repair shops add cybersecurity to their services and get up and running quickly. Get started today at untangled.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. John, how you doing?
Yo, both say all, Jeff. Welcome home.
Thank you. And also we have right next to him is Jeff Grenier from FireLands Computer Services. Jeff, how you doing?
Not too bad. How about you, John?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we're gonna have to go Jeff, and the three J's. Okay. All right, John, I'm gonna kick it off to you. Go ahead and give us a tip or story that we could learn from.
Well, we've been off for a little while, so I could drone on here a little bit as I normally do. So I guess I'll just go ahead and do that. First article up, and I'll put this in the chat and the show notes as usual, is, brought to mind because, we've got TechCon coming up. It's closer than you think. And one of our big sponsors is obviously our friends over at Freedom Voice, being a silver partner. So I ran into an article that's 10 things about VoIP you didn't know you needed to know. And just as a little caveat or a little intro, voice over IP, VoIP phone systems add flexibility, lower costs, and provide numerous other capabilities, but they can also hurt your business if you're not careful. Here are 10 potential pitfalls to avoid. So, the article goes into a lot of things, some things I haven't considered before, but cherry pick some items out of there. The idea I bring this to the table is just to minimize unpleasant surprises for both you and your customers. So, and I'll have some links in there that Freedom Voice, TechNut Unplugged, and to Blackport Solutions, the VoIP carrier I use. If you happen to be in Michigan, they might be a good fit for you. If you got any questions, you can reach out to me. Paco LeBron and Tom Wilmot, friends of the network, introduced me to a new password manager that they're very excited about called MyKey, myki.com. It's actually not that new. MyKey, the company, has been around for 5 years. I don't know how long they've been pushing the product, but they have an interesting YouTube video out, which is a nice little demo of their product and how it works with MSPs. I would suggest the highlight of the item, I'm a LastPass user and I really like LastPass, but MyKey is very focused on working with MSPs. So if you think your clients have an alternate or are looking for something that you want to manage for them directly, that might be a great fit. So check that out. I also put in there a product I use for a lot of offices that want to spend no money called Safe and Cloud, which is a good option. 2 quick stories from the trenches. So story time with Johnny now. System restore. So I was at a dental office and I was pushing out an upgrade. And when I do a big upgrade, usually what I do through my RMM is I'll push out a script that does a system, runs a system restore, creates a system restore point, just in case bad things happen. And since I can push it through RMM, it only takes, say, a couple minutes. And lo and behold, the one time I remember to do this, I actually had 2 laptops that would not boot after the software install, blue screened. So I was like, hey, not a big deal. I'll just do system restore. So I pulled out my little trusty Windows 10 installation key, popped it in, started system restore on one of the units, and it was progressing great. And then the other thing I remembered is also part of my RMM process. I push out the registry commands or the settings to reactivate F8 and Windows 10 on all the machines I manage so I can get to it. So hey, I'm not going to wait around for one to finish. So I move over to the other machine, do my F8, start the system restore. And lo and behold, this machine fails the system restore that I just created. So I say, no problem. I'll roll back and I'll do the next restore point. I do that, it fails again. And here's the caveat or the tip of the story. So then I booted, I don't know why I did this. I booted from my little USB stick, chose the first restore point that failed, and everything worked perfectly. So maybe, I don't know what's happening there, but maybe it's different if you do it from F8 or if you boot from media. So just keep that in mind. If your restore point's not working, maybe boot from some media and you'll have the same luck I did. Try both. And the next tip, moving on to an Office 365 story, our friend Paco LeBron, again, friend of the network, was having trouble with a customer that had Office 365 through GoDaddy. Don't beat up on Paco. It's a customer he hasn't transitioned yet. But one of his users, their account got hacked and literally was sending out hundreds and hundreds of emails. We could just see them in the OWA box just appearing and sending and sending. So we did all the normal stuff, changed the password on the account, blah, blah, blah. All this kept happening because we could not find anywhere in the GoDaddy admin where to push, like you can in G Suite or if you're using Microsoft, to log the user off completely out of all instances. So no matter what we did, this other user still had access to the account. So finally, Paco got a hold of GoDaddy, and I will put it in the show notes, but there is actually a special URL you have to go to. When you log in as that user, you go to this URL, and then it'll log out all the accounts, log out all the other instances. And I don't know if it's that way for other Office 365 instances. It's not in my case with AppRiver. I can just go in as the admin and log out all instances. So, but I thought that was curious with the GoDaddy. So that's a little tip for you. And a little bonus add-on to that, as we are doing through, Microsoft is actually, there's a big warning right now that through Microsoft Office, not Office 365, we're talking the Office programs, there are a lot of security exploits right now, which will allow access to the account. And I won't go into detail there, but I'll put the link in the show notes. So there just seems to be a lot going on with Office 365 and some security issues. So that would be a good reason to maybe look at DNS filtering or a good firewall to protect you against that kind of stuff. So that's all I got, Jeff.
That is an awesome list as usual. And just a FYI, Mike Heat will be coming on the show here within the next few weeks.
Boom, Paco's on it.
Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and go over to Jeff. And Jeff, what do you have for us this week?
I'll share kind of what I guess piggyback off of what John did. We did have an instance with I think it was Office 2019 where if you're having a open license, that we found out that if it kicks, we kept having an I guess you could say an installation instance that kept kicking the key, and we ended up finding out that you had to do it through PowerShell. So I'm not exactly, I wasn't the tech that worked on it, unfortunately, but I did find out, I plan on looking into that more, but we found out that if you have an open license, that you need to activate it with the product key through PowerShell, or else it will just keep kicking it out. I will definitely agree with really train your users or work, and maybe that's something that, John, you might even be interested in getting on the show sometime about these phishing things. We've had 2 or 3 clients just in the last 3 months, they get hit by these phishing things because they don't know what to look for in their email. So even if you put something together yourself, kind of show the user, that's what we did, was we got our hands on one of those emails, and we took screenshots and showed them, hey, look for this. You might think that, it's coming from this email address or this person, but when you hover over it, it displays what the true email address is. Just educating the user and a lot of stuff like that can really save you some time, tears, and some headaches, I think.
Very well said. Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things that I think we all try to train our end users, and a lot of times it falls on deaf ears, it seems like.
Yes.
And I think that has to do with, and I know, John, this is one of your pet peeves, but when a person says something to the effect of, I'm not a computer person, you get very irritated and want to punch them in the face. But it's like, you just need to think for a second and take a little bit of extra time. But most people are like, oh, it's not my problem. If something happens to my computer, it's not mine. It's the company's. I don't really care. Somebody's going to fix it. That's what they pay for. Whatever. And so I think getting that attitude change is the biggest thing that needs to be done. No, you are responsible for a certain amount of things that you do in your business as an employee, as an owner, whatever your role might be, you have a responsibility. So the day you don't think you have a responsibility is the day you should quit and go do something else. And I think sometimes having those blunt conversations with people and going, no, I mean, you have to do it nicely, but you also kind of got to shock people and waking them up and telling them, wait a minute, no, what you're saying is fundamentally wrong. It's like you're not a car person, but you still drive your car here and get here every time, right? You you might not be a gas person, but you still put gas in your car. You might not be a TV person, but you still know how to turn on the TV and watch your shows. You might not be a DVR person, but you still know how to operate the DVR to record your shows. So don't tell me you're not a computer person. Anyway.
So I need you with me most of the week, Jeff. So you just bring a bat with you and you can stand there. If anybody says that, I'll just say, hey, have you met Jeff? And then you carry on.
Oh, man. All right. So my story is this is something that John helped me with. And everybody knows that. I think the last time I was on the show, we talked about I redid my whole network. Everything worked out fine. I was able to take the 40 some odd devices I have and give them all, basically register them so that they have a static IP within my router. And so that worked out real well. Everything was smooth and easy. Then I got to a couple things where we did some VLANing, and the VLANing was awesome. I was able to separate my local network here into my business side where I hook customer computers up, and then to my regular home side where everything else is connected. And I think I'm going to do one more VLAN and take some of the devices that really don't need to be attached to my home network, but they need to be attached to the internet, i.e. things I don't control with my phone, like my TVs and stuff like that. Most everything else, I mean, if you look at what I use as far as my light bulbs for my office, those are controlled through an app on my phone. I have to, be on the same network in order to engage with those things. But there's some things that are just kind of outliers. But then we also set up a VPN so that when I was away in South Korea for a couple weeks, I could actually use the VPN service. So we went through the process, set it up. It was really easy. John walked me through it, and I went and tested it while I was here in my office. And John, so the one thing that I found out when I got over on the other side of the world and I go to use my VPN, I go, why is my VPN not going in? I was getting a South Korean IP address. I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. John, would you believe it or not? I forgot to flip the bit and actually turn the switch on to turn that VPN on. So I was like, oh my God.
Pretty technical difficulties is we'll
Exactly.
just call that.
Turn it on. So I turned it on, got it to work flawlessly. Now it did slow things way down because obviously I was going around the world and back around the world again, right? So it slows things down tremendously, but I was still able to do all the things I needed to do as far as checking emails and stuff like that. And while I was there, John, what's beautiful about the Oversea product through Arachnus is that I was able to go in, reset up another VPN, and actually hook it up to my phone. So now wherever I'm at in the country, whatever Wi-Fi I'm on, it doesn't really matter. I'm going through my VPN on my phone. And so all I did was follow the process that you showed me on the first one. And these things are a lot easier. I just have not done them in such a long time. Actually, I've never VPN before. That I had no clue. But once you do it, you're kind of like, oh, this is not that complicated.
Well, the setup on that 310 is pretty easy compared to a lot of the other ones.
Is it?
So
Okay.
Yes.
It's a beautiful device. I'll tell you what, rock solid, man. I love the Arachnus stuff. I really do. I just have not had as good a luck with other products out there. And I'll say probably consumer grade products, even though they were high end products. They didn't do the job. Not forever anyways. They usually lasted about a year or two, and then you start having problems. So anyways, all right. So let's go ahead and move on from there. TechNut Unplugged. John kind of talked about it a little bit before, bringing the IT community together. Join like-minded business owners for a weekend packed with resources to help your IT business thrive. Hear from experts and get one-on-one time with peers facing the same challenges you are. Walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. It is September 20th through the 22nd, 2019 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to techconunplugged.com. Get your tickets today. They are $199, and that covers all your food for the weekend, including Saturday night at Dave & Buster's. It will be a blast to hang out with like-minded individuals and to be able to talk shop and just talk about personal things and, get some questions answered and get that one-on-one time with people that you want to hang out with.
And just a shout out too. I know Paco. He just did an update to the site, added a few more sponsors that came on board, and also there's a better topics list included now. So if you really want to get into meet what we're talking about, it's there now too.
Yep, definitely check that out. All right, let's talk about our main topic, and that is, what does cybersecurity mean to you? We hear this term. We always hear these buzz terms that, for some reason, the IT professionals out there, the MSPs, whatever they want to call themselves, they come up with these wonderful terms. Maybe sometimes it's vendors, I don't know, but somebody comes up with these terms and says, "I think this is the next greatest thing since sliced bread. So we're going to call this thing XYZ and whatever it is. And we're going to sell it, even though most people are like a deer in headlights. They have no idea exactly what it is. Kind of like an MSP. Go out there and ask your end user if they know what MSP actually stands for. And I'll tell you what, even tell them managed service provider and see if they can figure that out. Most of the time, no. They have a electronic device that they want fixed. They just need somebody to fix it. They have a network that's down. They need somebody to fix it. So they don't really know what we're called. But let's look at the definition of cybersecurity that I found online. So it's got to be right. And that is the state of being protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data or the measures taken to achieve this. I like that. The measures, in other words, the actions taken to achieve this protected world or protected office or protected environment. And so that's kind of what cybersecurity, I guess, in essence, actually means.
Jeff, I was doing a little bit of homework, and I'll interrupt you. I love the definition, but how did they spell cybersecurity?
All one word.
Okay, because did you know, and I'll put a link in the show notes and all that, there's a little bit of a turmoil whether it's one word, two words, or hyphenated. So there's that much confusion about cybersecurity.
That's good, John, because I think it's two words. But I think most of the sites that I've been to, they put everything as one word. And now here, when I wrote it in my notes, here's what's funny. I wrote it as one word, but I actually made the S a enlarged S.
Well, the reason that Brisbane came to my attention now is type it in the Google Doc, and I typed it all one word and it underlined. And then it didn't say it was wrong. It says consider.
Right.
So I was like, all right. So, all right, stupid, I know.
Maybe hyphenated is the way to go. I don't, who knows? But anyway, so John, I'm going to kick it off to you and just have you tell me what cybersecurity means to you in your business.
Well, believe it or not, in our little Tech Brothers meetup group, we spent a lot of time thinking about this and really what it means to us as quote unquote managed service providers, or those that try to take care of the networks that we manage or work for. And I would suggest my definition, what I came up with, is a comprehensive, ongoing business mission that allows for the identification. And what I mean by that is the scene, the protection, the control, the detection, response, and recovery of cyber. And the only reason I put cyber in there is because we're talking about cybersecurity, but cyber or IT equipment, materials, data, and reputation. So that is my definition. And I really consider that more of the mission of what we should be doing for all of our clients. But really, we should be able to identify what our clients got going on, hardware, software, inventory, protecting that, including their reputation, their data, their equipment, detection, being able to see what happens and mitigate as possible, respond if there is a problem. And then if a disaster happens, we should be able to help them recover.
I like that. I think it's pretty straightforward. And again, one of the key things that you said that I really, really like, and I think most people really should think about, is that you need to do these things for your customers as a common sense approach anyways. In other words, we shouldn't have to call something or cybersecurity in order to do the right things by our customers in taking care of them and protecting their assets.
Well, going back to something else you said too, Jeff, is that I have very, very, very few customers that really want to buy into any of it, let alone to end users. So, I mean, they're all pretty excited when something bad happens about maybe getting interested in all that. It's just like, the old adage with backup. Nobody wants anything to do with backup until they lose all their data. and then they wonder, where's the backup? But yeah, so it's the same with cybersecurity or whatever we want to call it, or the things that we try to convince their clients that they need with their compliance or their security, or just protecting their reputation and their business. Really,
right. Very good. All right, Jeff, I'm going to kick it over to you. And what do you think about cybersecurity, and what does it mean in your business?
Well, I definitely did not have a long drawn out thing like John did, but cybersecurity is definitely one of the top most important things that anyone, as our MSPs, I know you love those acronyms, but the MSPs deal with. Not only is our client subject to hacking, viruses, stuff like that, so are we as the IT provider. It's huge. It's not to do with just business continuity, but like John said, with backing up the data, making sure the data is secure, not only from external threats but also internal threats. A lot of people sometimes really don't take into consideration those internal threats. When you have a disgruntled employee or somebody, they could leave with a USB stick with data on it. So it's not just the external coming in, but also the internal getting out. So you have to look at it from both angles. Not only the fact of, hey, somebody can get in, hack into the network, plant malware. Just the fact that, hey, I can load up an Excel sheet on any client's computer and really walk out the door, and they might not even think twice about it. So it's definitely something that you need to look at from both aspects of the spectrum, I believe.
That's very good. I think one of the things that I've always looked at is I've been running my own personal network inside my own home since 1999. And, and I know that there'll be controversies over this statement. In my household, the last time that I got a virus was on a Windows 98 machine. And that was because in Windows Messenger, somebody had sent me a picture they said, hey, check out my brand new car. And I remember this. And I clicked on the link. And sure enough, it was a pretty bad infection. And this is when I started learning how to wipe my computer every 6 months, because that's what we did back in the day. And then spend another 13 hours setting it up just the way I wanted it, back when I had time. So I remember doing that, and I remember going, I knew better even back then not to click on that link. And I consider myself a fairly smart individual, but it didn't matter. My friend was sending me a message and said, hey, check this out. And there's been times in the past, not too long ago, where you get an email from something like PayPal and it looks legitimate, and they say there's something wrong with your account, and you almost have to double check yourself. And fortunately, because we're in this industry, I think a lot of times we do actually think about it, but it still catches us off guard. So I kind of feel bad for the end customer when we talk about things like cybersecurity, because they get swooned by a lot of this stuff, and they go to look at it and they're just clicking on it, and oh yeah, this must be messed up, and they're in their day trying to do whatever they're trying to do for their job, and they're not really thinking about it. But here in my own household, on my own network, I basically, by doing a couple of smart things, using DNS filtering, having a pretty, using some sort of decent antivirus. And for a long time, since Windows 2007, it was basically using, whatever the Microsoft Security Essentials back then. Actually, even I think Windows XP had the ability to do that. I wasn't on it for too long. But when you look at these things, it just makes a lot of sense to do the right things to protect yourself as best you can. And a lot of people will say, well, you know the right things to do on your computer. Yes, but I have several other people, actually 6 other people in the household at the time, that don't. And so because of that, the small things I did to protect my network at the time have kept everybody on my network connected. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't get some little bit of malware or something like that. But I'm talking about something that's actually like a virus ransomware type deal. Just hasn't happened. So it's definitely doable out there to keep somebody's network locked down. But I think when it comes to somebody that's working in an office or a business, I think we got to step it up a little bit, because for some reason, I still think that email is the number one vector where most people get infected, bar none. There's really, people have talked about drive-bys and all that kind of stuff. I've never seen it. I mean, they say it's out there. I've read articles on it. Never seen it. So, um, it goes back to, I think, what Jeff said earlier, is that you really got to educate your customers to not do certain things. But on the other hand, we've got to idiot-proof things, and it's what I always call the lowest common denominator. In other words, you have to take the dumbest person at the company, and you've got to protect them, because if you protect them, you'll protect everybody that's above them. If that makes sense.
Well, you brought up two great points. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
And I know right now, just a FYI to everybody, Netflix, I just read this. I don't know if either of you have read about it, but Netflix is getting hit by that right now. They're getting phishing emails out. We're trying to get people's usernames and passwords, and those are fake as well. And that's been really big here in the last week or two.
I did read something quick about that. Yeah. So that's, and I think that happens all the time with some of your bigger companies, right? More popular companies.
Yeah, I know, the famous ones always UPS, FedEx around Christmas time, and Amazon. And I know we just had a client get hit about a month ago with the Office 365 that John was talking about. It's, but just emerging here this week is what I read about Netflix.
John?
Well, I'd like to go back to 2 points you brought up. One, considering, what to do about, in the overall, considering what to do about this. What are the standards that you should be doing? And then what are the products you should be using? And while, I don't think any one of us here want to totally endorse any one product as the ultimate solution for anything, the first thing I would warn against is the marketing that's happening in this space right now, because it is hot and heavy when you hear things like next generation or
God,
ultimate, or
Excuse me while I stick a fork in my eye. Hold on. Geez,
so and a lot of these products are awesome and might be cool, but make sure you pump the brakes and you put on your reality goggles and take a look at them, and make sure that you're not just paying $2 extra for next generation antivirus, which is the exact same thing you could get running Windows Defender or WebRoot or Bitdefender or something like that. So, make sure you're actually getting a next generation product or a next generation firewall or a next generation whatever, you bundled with all this. But before you even jump onto that bandwagon, I would suggest there's some, some standards, just some basic things that you got to get done before you even try to jump on the next bandwagon of the ultimate protection for your clients. And I'll put this, the global cybersecurity standards. I mean, there's three main things that the U.S. uses. Obviously NIST, but there's the CIS, critical security controls, Cyber Essentials, which is the UK, and then there's the Australian Cybersecurity Center, which all have great programs, which include checklists for guys like us, because really dig checklists. It seems I dig checklists, so I'm not picking on anybody. But if you don't do the basics, and let's just run through a little list of basics, there's no reason to do anything else. So first of all, you got to have an inventory of what you got going on your network, because if you don't know what's on your networks, then you can't control or protect those devices, period. You can't argue with me about that. You can put the world's greatest firewall on there, but if you don't know what you're trying to protect and you don't know what traffic's coming from where, it's just a waste of time. So do your inventory. And before I get any hate mail and all that, no, not all of my inventories and my documentation is 100%. And that is an ongoing process. And then any of you that know me know I've been doing this a long time and I'm still working on it. But the better those inventories they are, the better they'll be for you and for your cybersecurity needs. But let's just talk about the basics. So we got to patch the applications, right? Basic patching for applications, basic patching for OS, no doubt about it. Then you want to look at the applications that you're running for. Let's just pick on a dental office. So they're line of business applications. How can you harden those applications that a dentist, a manufacturer, or whatever might be able to use? Are they web-based? Are they on-site? What do they provide? How from password access to those devices to how the data is stored to backing up that stuff. So anything you can do to application harden and move on. Restricting admin permissions, not only to applications, but to the network and maybe to the computer. In some cases, you may not be able to totally remove administrator access to a PC. You may have a philosophy where you just want to leave that open, administrator local access on all PCs. That's fine too. Just go in there with your eyes wide open and know you have, nobody's right or wrong in that argument. Some people go to their grave saying allowing admin access on the local account is insane. Some guys will say, well, we need that because I don't want a ticket every time somebody wants to do something. So, you make up your own mind. It doesn't matter what I think. I would listen to both sides of the house and decide what you want to do. But local administrator access can be a big hole in a security plan. It might be something that you need too. Also taking a look at your servers and how to harden those. Those are some basics. The next thing is passwords. Jeff brought up passwords getting hacked. I'm starting to poke my offices and my customers to say, hey, why haven't we done two-factor yet? Two-factor would solve a lot of these problems. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do for a lot of offices because they don't understand it. So, you got to kind of handhold some of them so they don't lock themselves out of their account maybe the first time around. But 2FA would solve a lot of tickets for a lot of people. Moving on a little bit, obvious things. You need some antivirus. Make sure you at least just have something basic. I really like Windows Defender and the ATP and the ransomware protection that's getting built into that. I'm actually trying to maybe devise a way where I could manage that without doing a full Intune or something like that. But choose an antivirus product you like. I like Bitdefender. A lot of the guys in the group like WebRoot, or maybe you want to go to something like CyberSecurity or SentinelOne, which are those next generation products. And I'm not picking on any of their marketing because maybe they are awesome, but just make sure you know what you're getting into before you jump on those bandwagons. So AV, some sort of web content filtering, some sort of DNS filtering. Those are very easy to do. We had clean browsing on. $20 a month gets you some super sweet things to do with that. So that is not expensive. Backup, million ways to do it. Might as well just do it. And Jeff also talked about, email, some sort of email protection. I definitely think you probably need some sort of addition with Office 365. I'm not an Office 365 Pro. That's just based on my general observation. In my opinion, G Suite does a great job out of the box. You can add stuff to that if you want. But I'm having a hard time finding a phishing testing program that will get around G Suite's filters. So, a lot of times, like I've tried, KnowBe4 and their phishing program, but it automatically gets flagged by G Suite. I could whitelist in there, but I don't want to do all that trouble. So, there's those are the basics. If you don't have those done, then don't worry about anything else until you get those done. I'll put a link in the show notes to the Global GCA Cybersecurity Toolkit and to this page that has the basics on it. Once those are done, then you can move on. And I'll digress and let me know if I missed anything.
That is, it's very well said, John. I think it's good to have, I'm with you. I like checklists too. It's good to have that information out there to kind of give you an idea of what you need to be looking at, because there is a lot. And sometimes in our day-to-day business, we forget certain things that maybe we need to do. But again, it comes back to this documentation process, right? That we talk about all the time, the rainbows and unicorns, that everybody wants, the magic document. But you got to have something. You got to have a basis to start from. And I think once you have that, you can tweak it over time and get better and better. Will you ever reach perfection? I don't know anybody that has. There will be people that will be out there that will lie to you and say, "Oh, I've reached it." No, they haven't.
I wouldn't even suggest these things are more important before you put in a UTM. These are easy to do. These are low-hanging fruit. And I would also suggest that this is something that will protect you as a security provider. This is what your compliance expect, or at least think you're doing, in my opinion.
Right.
This is the minimum. This is where you got to be. So that if something bad happens and they come after you, or if they want, or somebody questions you and what you're doing, you can have some documentation and say, hey, look, we've done all these basics. And then I've approached the customer about a UTM, about a SIM, about next generation AV, about ransomware protection, about, and they said no. So make sure you got a little documentation on that because they didn't want to spend extra money. But if you do this, in my opinion, you can go to sleep at night and say, hey, I've done right by them because I've done the same things that I do for myself.
Very good. All right,
And I heard this once before. Sorry to cut you off there, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
But I've heard this once before, and it really rings true, is the client isn't buying backup from you, or they're not buying a firewall from you. They are buying the right to point a finger at somebody when something goes wrong. And that's exactly the truth, too, about it, because since they don't understand it, they just want to be able to point that finger at you, so you need to have your butt covered too as well.
And it's funny you say that because, and a lot of people laugh at this, but literally when you read my contract per se, if somebody fills out, whether you're a business or you're a home user, doesn't really matter. It's the same contract. You flip this thing over, you fill out your information. It's all highlighted where you need to fill it out. I tell them to flip it over. I made it a 1-page. So it's, I've got documents that I could have 4 to 8 pages. To me, that's ridiculous and whatever. Now, and again, not a lawyer, don't even play one on TV, but this is just what I've done. And again, it's a common sense approach. So I've taken this document, and literally when people ask me, do I have to read this whole thing? I tell them no. What it basically says is I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can, but I'm responsible for nothing. And you know what happens every time? They just sign the document. Okay. Because that's just, in reality, again, it's one of those things where you want to work with customers that want to work with you. You don't want to work with customers that are looking to do something like take advantage of you. Those are the customers you need to drop like a hot potato and move on and go get some other customers. I think it really comes down to relationships in this business. And I think that would save a lot of people heartache in their day-to-day lives if they would pick and choose their customers.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a quick break. This is an exciting subject, and I'm having a great time. And let's talk about one of our sponsors. Our show today is brought to you by BusyBench. Remember when running your business was simple? BusyBench sure does. Wouldn't it be nice to quickly create a repair ticket, generate an invoice with a single click, and manage thousands of customers completely free of charge? BusyBench thinks you will enjoy adding an unlimited number of customers, invoices, estimates, and inventory items so much that you might forget that they have paid features too. But don't worry, when your business grows and you need things like SLA alerts, payment processing, and recurring subscriptions, BusyBench will be there with you every step of the way. Turn a ticket into an invoice with a single click. If you add in inventory items to a ticket, they will be added to the invoice as well. The new invoicing module allows you to track when a customer opens an invoice and determines when it was viewed. Additionally, customers can pay that same invoice online. Manage your assets and predefined metrics and customization options. Easily track everything from customer serial numbers to logon passwords and device details from a single location. Receive daily digests recapping all of your activities, such as tickets created, invoicing generated, and payments received. Go to busybench.com and start your free account today. When you decide to upgrade, use the offer code PODNUTS for 30% off the life of your account. Thank BusyBench for supporting the Computer Repair Podcast. All right, so let's go ahead and get back into this wonderful subject called cybersecurity. So, Jeff, as far as the common sense things that you do in your business, where do you see that people probably, where your customers kind of kick back and go, yeah, I really don't want to do that. That's not worth it. I don't want to pay the extra money, whatever it might be. What's probably the biggest one that they kick back on?
Probably one of the I would say one of the scariest things is they're really always, oh, well, we have a backup here on site. So we're not worried about getting an offsite backup, or we're not worried about testing the paying you guys to test the backup. So a lot of times I'm like, well, this is pretty important that you guys test it. But half the time they don't want to, because they don't want to either take the server down. So we've even come up with other things like, well, what if we put it in a virtual machine, or something like that, just to prove that backup's working. And we had actually recently took over a client from a competitor, and that's, even as an MSP, you need to test the backup and you need to push it. even if they don't want the service of, hey, you guys come in and test this every month, I still tell a lot of the technicians, hey, grab a copy of that backup while you're there, and let's just test it when you bring it back here. Because we just picked up a client from one of our competitors after they lost 10 years worth of that guy's data, because they didn't test a backup. And that's huge. Another thing is just like the antivirus. Sometimes they don't see, like John was talking about with the next gen, and it's another one of those things that's just more hype than what it really is. But they don't see the value in what stuff like that can provide with the backup. And I'll tell you what, I know we're not really pushing products, but we've used Shadow Protect for it, and for our backup. And I'll tell you what, it saved 2 clients here in the last 3 months. We had an accounting firm that got hit by malware right in the middle of tax season, and we were able to restore everything back to the hour they finished working on Friday when they got hit on a Sunday, and nobody worked on Saturday, so they didn't lose anything. And then right after that, he saw the value in it. And unfortunately, like you were saying, Jeff, sometimes it takes, I think, or was that John? They have to experience that data loss first before they really sit there and go, hey, this is definitely worth the money. And the other client was a construction firm. They got hit because somebody clicked on an email and opened up the wrong thing, and they got hit. And luckily, with those 1 hour intervals, we were able to restore everything, and they lost maybe 15 minutes or half an hour worth of work. So, and that's really the biggest pushback, is getting people to understand, hey, offsite is huge as well. What do you? I always tell everyone, what would you do if this building ceased to exist? And they go, oh, I never really thought about that before. Well, so and so takes a backup offsite with them, or a hard drive. I'm like, okay, well, do you test it? Is that something that you guys test on a regular basis to make sure, hey, that hard drive isn't damaged? Or because the research I've showed, and Jeff, John, correct me if I'm wrong, is when these people that use Windows Server backup, it just tells you, hey, I sent that backup file successfully. It doesn't tell you the integrity of the data on there. Have you guys found the same thing?
Well, I don't know. There's very few backup programs that actually test the full integrity of the backup. I mean,
right.
Like Datto gives you the little virtual spin up screen and all that. But, I've even had some guys say they've got burnt by that, where you still need to verify. So the only true way is do a restore from your backup. And when I say that, I mean a full restore, because I've actually been burnt by a backup where I've done a file, like an individual file restore as a test. And then I found that there are other files within that backup that were not restorable. So yes, yeah, I do use Windows Server backup. I really like it, but it's a tertiary backup. It's not my primary backup. Like, I'll toss an external device on a server and it's just another backup. It's there, it's free. In my opinion, why not use it? So I'd toss that out there. But, we have other tools to shoot an online backup and do other things. But, I agree with that. You got to test them.
Right. And I don't know about, everyone else, but another pushback that we get is renewing your licenses for your Sonic walls or your Ecliptics or your firewall. I know a lot of people go, oh, well, why do I keep paying for that? And that's a huge pushback that we get, because they just don't like spending the money. And part of it's our geographical area, I think, because it seems like everyone out here is like trying to be cheap as heck about everything. But some of these just big.
That's not geographic.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
Hello, brother. Yeah, and just like you said, I've had some customers ask me about that monthly too on the Ecliptics, but I just had a problem with Ecliptics today, and I put a ticket in, and good old Dwayne got back to me today on Sunday. So, I mean, high five Ecliptics. They're still doing a good job. I still find them. I use them. I still had a lot of clients. I find them very good when needed. So.
Well, and going back to what you said, Jeff, one of the things that when I was doing a lot more networks, I would require my customers, when they would have like Peachtree accounting or QuickBooks or whatever, I would make them buy. It was $600 a year for support. I was like, it wasn't an option.
Right.
It was like, if you want support, for this. I do not know Peachtree. I do not know QuickBooks. I'm not going to spend the time to learn them. That is not what I do. But we will have support. I will be the intermediary and we'll get it taken care of. But that's the only way you're going to get support from somebody that knows what they're doing with a product that they produce.
I think that's a big mistake we've all made in the past, where we just say, well, we'll do everything.
Right.
Well, I got it. I got it. But if that's your business model, meaning, hey, we are Egosoft, which is a dental program. We are Egosoft guys. That's what we do. Boy, you barely need Egosoft. Even if you say that, you still need Egosoft so you can have access to the updates. So you still are going to need to pay them for support. But in my opinion, when you do that, we need to communicate to our clients to say, hey, you need to have that support, and we'll support them if they need us to make changes locally on the network, or if we need to do something in the firewall. Because when somebody says, I'm not a computer person, I didn't ask them to reprogram the firewall, open some ports, change the FTP from passive to, an SSL. I didn't ask you to do that. I asked you to right click. That's usually my feedback. Are you capable to drive home? Just like you said, Jeff, yes, then we can get through this right clicking and you can get this done. The problem is, and I keep going back, and I think I don't remember who brought it up, is, we're the MD, we're the general practitioner. We're not the brain surgeon. And even going back to cybersecurity, I would be wary about everybody that we're not true cybersecurity experts. Really, as in the new MSSP. I mean, that is somebody that knows their security through and through and through. I mean, that's a whole lot of other training if you want to go and get that and really know that. I don't claim to be a cybersecurity expert, but I can follow the NIST controls or the CIS controls. And, obviously as professionals, we know enough to harden the network, get the basics done, blah, 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 blah. But, just keep in mind what you're promising, both with cybersecurity and other aspects, to your clients. Oh, and let me jump on one more bandwagon as I drone on. Keep in mind that if bad things happen, your customers probably will want to see some documentation that you've actually been doing this stuff. So, your AV product should have some logs, your RMM product should have some logs. And for compliance, if something bad happens, you need to prove that you've been doing this. So keep that in mind.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, it's man, never ending. So I think when we're talking about doing stuff that is going to take care of our customers and doing it for the right reasons, sometimes, and I think that, John, I think you said it perfectly. I think we don't force their hands enough into doing certain things that they need to do in order to protect themselves. In other words, we don't have a law that says you as a business owner have to have a backup on your data. But there is a law that says you have to have insurance on your building. You have to have insurance on your car. So it's no different than that. These are the things we're here to protect you from bad things happening. And most of the time it's caused by you or your employees. So it's an insurance to protect you from you. Anyways. Yeah, I guess the other thing too I was going to say, John, is that as far as you're right, as far as being a cybersecurity expert, I don't think there's going to be any companies out there that, if that's not what you solely are doing. In other words, we might have to partner with a cybersecurity company to do the things that we need to do one day, because that is all they're going to be able to concentrate on. In other words, like you said, John, you're not going to be able to be a general practitioner. So if somebody that says they're a cybersecurity expert, but then they do all these other things, they're not. That's going to be something they're going to have to concentrate on, because there's going to be a lot more things that are coming about when it comes to cybersecurity. Everybody keeps saying it gets scarier and scarier. Yeah, the games change a little bit, but it's the same old stuff. We just got to get smarter at protecting our customers. And that's what's cool about being in today's day and age. There's a lot of tools out there that you can put in place that will help mitigate you having any problems.
Well, it's the same thing. You don't see a whole lot of brain surgeons doing vasectomies. It's the same rule, or fixing bad knees and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing is that a lot of us don't have a good plan for, and I'm always wary of my plan and wondering if I can improve it. Is so you've been breached, you've been hacked, the customer's in a bad space. Do you have your plan in place on what you're going to do? That should be a big part of what you're doing for your cybersecurity needs for your own business and for your customers.
Very well. All right. Let's go ahead and take another quick break, and then we'll get into this subject a little bit more. I think we got a little bit more time. Our show today is brought to you, speaking about cybersecurity, Untangled Next Generation Firewall, designed to provide your small to medium business customers with the easiest, most cost-effective solution for network security. Untangled is the fastest way to add cybersecurity to your service offerings. We've taken enterprise-grade security and put it into a platform that makes it easy to get started risk-free. There's no steep learning curve with Untangle. Instead, you'll get a browser-based dashboard that lets you see the status of your managed networks at a glance. You'll enjoy on-the-box reporting included at no extra cost, plus customizable alerts that integrate easily with apps like PagerDuty and VictorOps. Make it simple to stay on top of any incidents that do occur. Untangle NG Firewall not only protects your clients with gateway antivirus, spam blocking, and intrusion prevention, but also gives you control over traffic at the application level with web content filtering, app control, and full SSL integration. You also get WAN optimization features like balancing, failover, and bandwidth control. Whether you need VPN options or a captive portal for secure Wi-Fi, Untangle NG Firewall has everything you want in a single solution. With lots of freebies like centralized management with zero-touch provisioning and a cloud threat intelligence scan for a second layer of defense included at no extra cost. There's no better choice than Untangle for getting visibility into and control over the network traffic, helping your clients safely connect to the internet for their business critical applications. Visit untangle.com/podnuts today to get a free no obligation trial of NG Firewall and save 15% on any purchase with promo code podnuts. I want to thank Untangle for supporting the Computer Repair Podcast. All right.
Well, really quick on that note, Untangled is a sponsor now of TechCon, which is awesome. The other thing is, if you haven't been to the Untangled page, which I just put in the show or in the chat, they got a new Z series of products, if I can spit that out, which looks pretty cool. I mean, I'm a Ecliptics guy right now, pretty much, and I use some Arachnus 310s where I can, which I like as well, but that's not a UTM. They got a full breadth of products ranging from $300, meaning Untangled, up to the corporate level to support hundreds of users. So if you've looked before, you might want to take a peek again. And the nice thing about it is all their products run the exact same version of their software. So pretty easy to manage.
Very good. One of the other things that when we're talking about terminology, we're talking about things that are coming down the pike as far as new buzzwords, and I want to touch on something that when I look at things, I look at them simply. In other words, just, hey, common sense. Let's take a look at this. And what does this really mean? And I want to talk about it for a second. Next generation antivirus. And here's the thing. A lot of people will talk about AI and they're excited about, artificial intelligence. And no, we're not talking about Skynet or anything like that. We're talking about basically machine learning. And a computer learns the habits of, i.e., either a person or a file or a little bit of both. When you look at things like next generation antivirus, I'm going to be honest with you. Number one, there's a thing called definitions, which most antiviruses run on. In other words, and there's usually only one or two antivirus companies out there that actually do the testing to pull these files and make definitions to protect all the things that are coming on the internet. Now, it's a race, so they can never keep up. But as a general rule, as long as you get your definitions downloaded on a regular basis, you can be most of the time pretty well protected. Well, there's this thing called heuristics, and it's your machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it. And it's supposed to look at habits and patterns and things and protect your machines from those types of things. So when they talk about next generation antivirus, to me, it's more of the same crap that's been out there before. I'm sorry, I said crap. It's the same stuff. In maybe they're making it better, but I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, from what I've seen in the past, heuristics is not all that great. It does okay. And it's like John has said before, it's better than nothing. It's nice having these different layers. And again, this is my simplistic looking at really what the products are, what they do, how they operate. And maybe somebody can explain to me how it is so much better. And I would be happy to listen. And maybe you can change my opinion.
I'd be happy to explain.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Well, the way I understand these next generation products, so if we look at General AV, and I'll just pick on Windows Defender, and we'll make some assumptions with Defender, that it is a good antivirus, just from an AV product, that it is a good at heuristics, which it is. If you go look at AV test or AV comparatives, you can put your own weight into what you think of those, but it's scoring in the top 5 of those products. All right. What it lacks, and maybe the next gens bring even a greater grasp on, is if you're not using Intune or another management platform, Microsoft's ATP, threat protection, and all that, is you can't manage the product. So you can't see what's happening unless you have an RMM product or another product that will do that for you. And you know how to do some PowerShell and other scripting to maybe control some settings and all that remotely. So what a next gen AV, and let's pick on like Cynance or SentinelOne will do, is they'll plug in and supposedly provide all that AV protection, all that heuristic protection, and then put on top of that some sort of artificial intelligence to look even deeper. Hey, we're even smarter than that old-fashioned stuff. We've got this AI that's learned from all these countless endpoints on what's happening, and we can foresee applications and how they're supposed to respond. And if they're not responding correctly, we can step in. Great. Maybe that adds more percentage levels of protection, takes our protection from 98 to 99%, and foresees those 0-day threats that we see. But on top of that, where I see a lot of those products go is they dig deeper, where they're, for lack of a better word on my part, is they are monitoring and historically tracking all the changes. And a lot of this moves into the level of what's called a SIM product, and we can get into that later. Well, it's monitoring all the changes for every file that's happening on an endpoint or on a network, where that's transferred, how that file is changed. So basic example, you get an infection, it goes in and let's say ransomware encrypts a bunch of files in a particular directory, but then this product says, hey, I saw what happened and I stopped it. Great. Well, then it can go in and it can show you what happened, where it came from, what gives you all this history, again, to go to your recovery process, your remediation. But then also, kind of like a restore point, lets you roll those files back to the previous version because it's keeping a version of those files already. So, it allows you, just like AV would say, hey, we got it, we quarantined it, we're done, thanks, we deleted it for you. This will say, hey, this is how this started. Here's the services that it got, that it was using to do that. Here's the steps or the flow of how that infection moved through this endpoint. And then, hey, guess what? We can roll all that back to before it happened, and you can just continue to go. So that's where I think a lot of the next generation products are trying to step in, adding the AI component you talked about, and then adding these extra features on top. And I'm sure there's more they're trying to kickstart into there as well. But those are the big things that I think you're paying for, at least in my definition of what a cybersecurity plan is, or what I think cybersecurity is, what we're providing.
Very good, John. And it's one of those things where I look at it and I go, so basically, from what you have just told me, it sounds like they are almost a pseudo RMM backup, all in one kind of inclusive program. I make fun because a lot of times we will see products and services out there that will go, we're all you need. Just us is all you need, and we will protect everything that you have. And not one product out there has done that. And that's where I caution people to look at what it is, because I like the different layers that we provide our customers. And a lot of times that can be a pain in the butt for us because we are looking at so many different panes of glass. There is no single pane of glass. There never will be. So just forget about it. And so, I think we've talked about this before too, John, of not having all our eggs in one company's basket. And that's always my caution, is that because if something happens to that one product or one company, we could be very, very well hurt.
Well, if I was
from
going to pick out a brand like that, and it's a brand I like, is, if I looked at Sophos, you can get a Sophos UTM, you can get, which would have, gateway antivirus and all this filtering, and then you can run Sophos on your endpoints and your server, and it has a lot of these products. And don't get me wrong, I think Sophos is a great product if you're running it. And I based on what I'm going to say, I would pull it out either. That's not where I'm going. But then I'm also thinking if Sophos misses something, your whole stack is Sophos.
Right.
So, maybe, and maybe we can argue about this over TechCon and all that. Would it have been better to have a Sophos UTM and Bitdefender on the endpoint, or whatever, and I can't answer that. I don't know. And where these next gen AVs are coming and where they're bumping up against to is what's called a SIM, which is a security information and event management software or appliance. What a SIM does, and this is another basic explanation, is a SIM monitors everything that happens on your network. Every file that transferred, who it transferred from, who was accessing that file, what changes are made, what services it accessed, what it did, what user did what, blah, 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 blah. Manages, every event on your entire organization or endpoint, depending on how you've deployed and what SIM you're using. So the idea is more and more in cybersecurity and with compliance is the idea that is you have to be able to see, identify what is happening, and then protect or control what is happening. And that's where these products are moving, this next generation of product, where it was AV, okay, well, you're protected. If we find something bad, we'll delete it. We're done, to identification, protection, remediation, all this stuff. That's the next gen. And to be totally clear, I haven't chosen any next gen product yet. I'm hoping maybe we get a next gen vendor to TechCon if we can pull that off, or maybe I got to go to DattoCon or something like that to talk to all these guys. I've done a few demos. I know Paco's done some demos. Been trying to talk to guys smarter than me, which there are many, or gals for that matter, to see what they're using and if they like it. But it's a wait and see. I'm still working on the basics.
Well, and I think that's a good point, John, too, because what you're talking about is a form of documentation. When you're talking about compliance and these different things, that is an important thing that you need to have, because that answers a lot of questions that you're going to need to answer if there is a breach and there needs to be some sort of remediation. Okay, where are we looking at? What are we doing? So that makes sense to me.
Well, and also I'm seeing SIM, or the requirements for a SIM creeping into some PCI, SIM credit card application requirement type things. And with some insurance, I'm seeing the SIM question come up on insurance applications. Right now, at least for my client size, which I would call small business, 500 users or less, there's not really an affordable SIM product. You might have to go to a company like, who'd we meet? We met the guys and gals over at Infogressive. You might have to go to somebody like them and employ their stack or look at their stack to get everything. I don't have the answer there, but that's, as IT professionals, as in supporting our clients, I really think that's stuff we need to be considering and thinking about moving forward from the basics we talked about into the next generation of what we need to do.
I know. I believe it's SolarWinds is introducing a NG AV here in the next. I'm not sure if it's integrated yet. I know they've been really pumping it up, but I know that they're implementing one. They've had tons of webinars on it. So if anybody's using SolarWinds, not the Enable platform, but the RMM platform, that I'm not sure about the Enable platform, but with the RMM platform, they have announced that they're putting in a next gen AV. And I'll double on what John said. I've been talking with Infogressive ourselves, and they seem to have a really impressive stack to help people like MSPs and IT specialists, especially because, like you guys said, we can't afford to really have anybody on staff that's a cybersecurity specialist, and none of us can really claim to be, because we'd be working in a much higher aspect of probably a government organization at that point.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I'll second that. I've heard good things about Infogressive. I've looked at and heard good things about Socksotter, SOCSOTER. If you're looking for somebody to kind of step in and do that next level of MSSP, I agree with Jeff that maybe you need to engage with somebody else that's their total focus. That's all they're doing.
I know if you guys have one around you, I attended a conference. It was IOTSA, or IoT. I forget how the acronym goes, but if you look on there, John, I'll see if I can find it and email it to you for the show notes. But they're cybersecurity, I guess you could say, seminar type thing, and there's tons of vendors there from Fortinet, and Infogressive was there, but it's free to attend, and it's just great information for anybody that's providing that type of service to a client.
Yeah, and I would encourage, IOTA does have a podcast, so when you get done with listening to ours, if you did have more time left, you could listen to their podcast, which is actually really good as well.
Very good. And I think when you're and I'm not saying that these companies don't need to move forward with their technology, because they absolutely do. I just caution people to understand what they're actually looking at and how these products work. And here's the nice thing about what we do. A lot of times you can get free demos and test this stuff out. Now you really need to test it out, because I know a lot of people will get products, they'll throw it on a machine, it kind of sits there, but it might not be in a real world environment. So what I would suggest, and I know John does this in his business, I would suggest that you get that into something that's a real world environment. For me, it would be my kids. I'd throw the crap on their computer, and then we can, kind of see what goes on, see how they're protected, see how maybe they're not protected, see what kind of gets through. They would be my real world case scenario. And then if something happens to their computers, I'm not as bummed as somebody that I'm actually watching their business computers. I don't want to use them as a guinea pig. So
well, also keep in mind, when you're deploying anything security related, it's probably going to create some pain for both you and your clients. So, if you're managing 20 endpoints, 100 endpoints, 900 endpoints, 1500 endpoints, certainly don't do them all at once. If you can, maybe choose a customer, maybe even talk to that customer about, hey, we're rolling out some new security stuff. I'm going to put it on over the weekend. I'll be in the office Monday morning. Let's see what happens. Because, you may deploy something and the next morning they come in, something may not work that is critical to them, that you didn't realize that this was going to identify as malicious, or, we've all had our tools grabbed by antivirus and marked as, malicious of some sort, whether, we're trying to do some sort of registry change or change some file that AV says, oh, this must be malicious, even though it's. Anyways, I digress. You know what I mean. But just, during deployment, do a phase deployment or do testing deployment. And I would also suggest you do this with any security product you choose before you sign on the dotted line, especially if it's longer than a monthly commitment.
Another way that we test here is if we're rolling something like that out. Obviously, disclaimer to everyone, take your obvious precautions internally, but put it on a virtual machine. Try to infect it that way. See how the product responds. Even if you have like a backup, like we were talking about with clients earlier, and you restore it to a virtual machine, you can use that before you actually roll it out to the client to see how it interacts with their programs as well.
That's good. All right, let's getting a little late here, but let's if I'm going to talk about one more thing before we move on. And that is, if you would like to support what we're doing here, I would encourage you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, and there's Larry Brinker. Appreciate that. I also want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. Just to let you know, it's if you spend $1 a show, we do about 4 or 5 shows a month. In the summertime, it's been a little less, maybe two a month. And I only charge for when I'm actually doing a show, because if something were to happen to me, all of a sudden, I don't want everybody getting charged and money just going into the ether. So that was the way that I thought it was best. And what that'll do is that'll get you into the secret Facebook group where you can share ideas with other like-minded business owners and individuals and get questions answered in a nice format where nobody will call you stupid. And that's what we like. All right.
Really quick, I want to talk about the CRP group, since I'm one of the enforcers on the CRP group. I would just caution everybody, and I'm going to put myself in the same loop too, that, when we're having product discussions, remember, you guys and gals can just use what you want to use and give your opinion on a device. keep in mind that calling another product that somebody else used dumb, stupid, or suck is not a contribution to our forum. Maybe explain why you think it sucks or that you got burnt in the past. Please, it's a discussion on providing valuable information, not trying to pump your chest or whatever you want to call it, that you use one product over another. It's the only thing that I've noticed lately, that a couple of the discussions have kind of gone that way. Paco and I haven't said anything, but just keep in mind it's informational based, instructional based, sharing based. What we've accomplished, the things that we've run into, that's what we want to do. Thanks.
That's very good, John, and I appreciate you actually saying that, because
And I might be the pot calling the kettle black. I tried to go back through a couple of my posts to make sure I wasn't doing that. I really like the products I use, but that doesn't mean they're going to work for you.
Right.
It could be something, just the interface. You don't like the interface. And I said this in one of my posts. I mean, if you don't like the interface of a product that you got to stare at for a good quantity of the time of your life on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that's a great reason to switch. I mean, it really is. So, you got to be able to use the product and maintain the product and work with the product quickly and efficiently to, do your job. So, like what you'd like, but provide constructive feedback as much as possible. Thanks.
And the other thing too, John, is I think what ends up happening, and you kind of alluded to this, is that a lot of times we will get burnt by a product, and all of a sudden that becomes the worst product in the world, even though there are literally thousands and thousands of other people that use that product that didn't have that problem. Would that be a fair assessment?
That'd be an extremely fair assessment. I mean, obviously, I've had that happen. I've been doing this long enough where I've had a bad day with some of my favorite vendors. The only thing you need to do if that happens, is maybe regroup, go back at it the next day. Keep in mind that every day you wake up, you're not all roses and sunshine either. You could have just been dealing with somebody that has a bad day. Obviously, Microsoft deploys bad patches quite a bit lately. So I'm sure they're not pushing those buttons on purpose to piss everybody off. At least I hope they're not. So, keep in mind, this crap's hard. If it wasn't hard, nobody would need us. So, pat yourself on the back, maybe thank yourself that there's bad patches so that we can get some extra billing. Maybe look at it differently, but I know I don't wake up every day, and I know and get it right, and I know I push some damn wrong buttons in my day. That's the no hair. So let's just keep it real out there. We're all in the same struggle, and let's try to have a little fun with all this and see where we get.
That's good. All right, Jeff, any lasting thoughts on this whole, anything that you want to say, whether it has to do with cybersecurity or anything we've talked about today?
I would definitely, just encourage everybody, make sure you are pushing your clients to have a backup in place. Make sure you're just pushing them to do that extra mile, not only to cover you, but to cover them as well. Another thing that I would really highly, we just started using it, I want to say in the last couple months, is a pass portal. And if you don't have like a centralized password management solution, definitely look into one. We were using a Excel spreadsheet. It was encrypted, but it was only on our local network, so it's helped in the field. So I would highly suggest that for anybody, like I said, whether it's Passport or something else, whatever works for you. But it's definitely great to have all that information written down somewhere, especially, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, that, hey, somebody's able to pick up after you and kind of continue on. But that would be just a couple of my suggestions from operating standpoints. And it's great for the cybersecurity too, that everything's not stored on your server as well.
That's very good. John, any lasting thoughts from you?
Just in the vein of cybersecurity, I'm going to jump on Jeff's coattails and make sure that your technicians, your users that have access to that type of data are using secure passwords and 2FAs to access that data and control that data where you're sharing it. Part of that, identifying where that data goes, protecting that data, detecting if somebody gets to it that shouldn't be getting to it. If bad things happen, how you're going to respond to both internally and externally to your customers, and then how you're going to recover. So just, that's a great response that Jeff has, using a tool like that to protect not only your data, but your client's data, because obviously we control a lot of that. And then, what happens? What if bad things happen and somebody gets in all that data? Or if you have a bad technician or somebody that works with you that gets that data, what are you going to do? So have that that plan or that remediation plan, or what does Infogressive call it? Your incident response plan ready and to roll. There's my 2 cents. See you in the group, CRP group.
The other thing too is I will say this. So when I was overseas, obviously my phone did not work. So meaning no regular phone calls, no text messages. So what I will encourage people and what I learned, I kind of knew this, but it kind of bit me on one of my accounts because I have everything that I can have 2FA turned on, two-factor authentication, I do. And some of them I've set up in the past to go to text messages because I always figured I would have the same number, blah, 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 blah. And I probably should have used another authentication app, i.e., I could use LastPass Authenticator, I could use Google Authenticator, Authy, whatever. And so pick one and try to use that for everything that you can so that you're not stuck when you don't have phone service. Because I would say I'd probably be right in saying that no matter where I'm at, I'm probably always going to be connected or can get connected to the internet, but maybe I can't get connected to my phone service, especially if you're traveling abroad. You guys got a couple more minutes. I got one email that I've been dying to read and answer, and it's been quite a while since we've had time with all the vendors and stuff we've had come on the show, so I figured I'd save it up till now. All right. Here is our email. It says, hello, Jeff. I hope you're doing well and business as well, too. Many thanks for the good work you and John are doing. I want to pick your brain about reselling antivirus or buying for clients. In the past, most clients do not want to pay for antivirus, so I just kept Windows Defender on. I now have a client who wants a paid-for virus protection. What do you use or recommend? Do I buy, sell, manage the licenses, etc.? Thank you very much for your support, Edward Asante. Thank you, Edward, for your wonderful email. John, what say you?
Well, I think that Jeff, both of you, me, Paco, Tom Wilmot, Joe K, JD, we'll all go behind the hotel at TechCon and we'll have a fight. And whoever wins that fight, that'll be the AV that's the best.
I like it. That's true. That
keep in mind, true. I'm almost 50, so you guys can. Again, I go back to, start with the basics. Do a little evaluation. A lot of people say, well, AV comparatives or AV tests, those companies pay to be listed there. Well, of course they do. I mean, those are quote unquote profit or nonprofit organizations. I mean, they need to make some money to be tested. Regardless, they're all getting tested the same way. So at least it's a baseline. And what I mean by that is don't choose Bob's AV that only detects 1% of the bad thing that's going on. You see McAfee at the top, you see Symantec at the top, but you other see products like, maybe Kaspersky's up there, Bitdefender, Sophos. There's a lot of good products. Choose one that, do some evaluation, think about management. We just talked about cybersecurity controls. That's very important now. If you're using an an RMM product, and let's pick on SolarWinds, you might want to use the products they have built into your RMM products so you don't have a whole nother pane of glass. Jeff just mentioned, I know they've got a next-gen AV coming. Right now, I think they deploy Bitdefender through SolarWinds. Great product.
Yep.
You can do your baseline on that. If you can find a way, more and more, I'm liking Windows Defender now that it's getting passing scores on AV test and comparatives and all that kind of stuff. But again, if I can't manage it, it's not a solution. So you may need just to draw a line to that list. What is it? ESET right now does not have a cloud program for managing their AV products. So maybe ESET's off your list. Although it's a great product, you need that management and control. I think they're supposed to have it later this year. So maybe you just hold and wait for that. There's other products that are quote unquote totally AVs, but also work very well in the space. And I'm talking about Malwarebytes. They are an AV product now. They claim, but they also do much more on the malware, adware, and other security aspects that maybe general AV does. So you should look at them or combining them together. with an AV product. And then you've got the whole next gen line. So, my answer to this, and I think we've had an AV show before, and maybe we need to have another one to stir this pot again, is it depends. It depends on what your needs are. Are you managing business clients? Are you doing home users? Home users, MCSoft guys, you should seem to love MCSoft, and now I hear they have a whole cloud management program coming out for their AV product. So, maybe that's something you look at. So really choosing an AV is really an it depends product answer. And then don't forget the little old Viper product that's still out there. I took a great look at them, and I really like them, and their pricing's attractive, and that might be a great way to get started too.
I like it. Jeff?
I would agree quite a bit with what John said. We kind of diversified, but didn't really diversify. We try to stick with the same products, so that way we're not supporting a bunch of different things. As John pointed out, we're using RMM through SolarWinds, and yeah, you're right, John. That's Bitdefender. So we also use Gravity Zone then, and on our residential side, or with the people that just want to buy that one-off license that don't want the RMM solution. But we do have like ESET, or it's not ESET, MZSoft, that if they don't want Bitdefender, they can have MZSoft, and that's pretty much the only two things we go between. John, I know you, or Jeff, I know that you said, hey, the Windows Defender, it's gotten a lot better, but I still kind of, being in it for 18 years, I kind of still turn my nose and cringe when I hear, hey, I'm just using Windows Defender. And I think after all those years of their bad rap, I've never given it a chance. So I sit there and I kind of just go, oh no, why are you using, because it seems to be the default go-to. But you've kind of restirred my memory in it. I'm thinking I'm going to throw a couple of things at Windows Defender and see what it can actually get. But at least it's having something is better than having nothing at all. But try not to have like 5 different products that you're offering to people, because then you're just going to get confused, and it's going to be harder for you to support it because it's more for you to learn. Definitely choose 2 or 3 and just stick to those, so that way you're giving your customer the best support you possibly can on a product.
And Jeff, you said some wise words there that I want to jump on a little bit more too, is having a consistent product lineup, whether it's hardware, your UTM, your networking gear, and all that, especially in the security areas. Let's say you're having a problem, like simple example, a customer can't get to a particular website. Well, is that your AV content filter and blocking it? Is it your UTM jumping in there? Do you have some sort of DNS filter in place? So keep in mind, you're stacking up all this security stuff that when a problem occurs, you're going to have to poke each location, and that might not be a single pane of glass to figure out where that problem, or how to remedy that issue. And if you have several different products in your lineup, we all appreciate that layered approach, which I'm not going to argue against. Just make sure you realize you have to manage all that too.
Very good. And the other thing I'll say is that you probably want to learn, and I would almost say at least one product, and that is because you run into things like I've ran several different products over the years, and you'll run into things like, especially if you're using some of the suites. Now, if you're just using their antivirus product, their anti-malware product by itself, then that's a little different. But when you have like a Bitdefender that has a very robust software firewall, sometimes you're going to need to go in and make a lot of adjustments in order to get that product to work. So whatever you're using, you got to make sure that you know that product inside and out, so that when you do have problems, or it's a little too aggressive, which is not necessarily a bad thing, you just have to realize that you're going to have to make some adjustments depending on your customer. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, just try them out. Pick one. John's done this 1,000 times. You can change, 1,000 endpoints. It's a pain in the butt, but it's not like life ending. So you can switch from one product to another, no problem.
And a lot of them come with free trials, so you can try them out for 2 weeks, a month, and see how you like it before you offer it to your customer. And that's one thing we do, is always test it internally and make sure you like it before offering it to your customer.
Absolutely. All right. So before we get on out of here, I want to, Jeff, where can people find out more about what you do and where you're at and what you're all about?
Let's see. I can be found on Facebook. I know I'm in the Facebook group. So if anybody, has any questions, comments, wants any advice, I'm reachable there. Reachable via email, J Grenier, Grenier at FireLandsIT.com or our website, FireLandsIT.com.
Very good. Appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing. It's been fun.
Yes. I appreciate you having me.
No problem. And John, where can people find you at?
Well, Computer Repair Podcast Group on Facebook. I'd look forward to seeing everybody else. There's 127 of us out there now, so it is a good resource that I like to peruse and browse and participate in.
Very well said. Thank you. Thanks for coming out again, John. It's been wonderful. I've missed you for the last couple of weeks, so it's been nice to catch up. All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, unless I'm out of town, over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can also send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com, and we do read those on the air, unless you tell us not to. Or you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000, and we'll also play that on the air, unless you tell us not to. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.